do you like hot gyarus? Do you like whenever translators try to figure out how they can turn different dialects and Gyaru talk into random memes of the internet? Well, I have a show for you. Hokkaido Gals are super adorable. A series that is airing in the winter 2024 anime season. I'm sorry, I can't keep a straight face when I'm talking about the weird things that this translator for this series is coming up with in order to translate the weird way that this girl is talking. Like using such terms as mid. Yes, that's a thing. For some reason, the translator thought, man, this mid word is really popular right now. Everybody's using it. Only everybody's using it in ways that's derogatory and everybody freaking hates the word. So let's stop freaking using it. Yeah, ame and zing. That's a good one. That's a good one. Anyways, I've been watching Hokkaido Gals for obvious reasons because, you know, hot gyarus in cold climates. And I have actually been enjoying this series. I am typically very, very picky whenever it comes to shows that are the perfect waifu that likes the boring main protagonist guy. Now, granted, with this particular series, Tsubasa, pretty decent guy. So far, he seems pretty cool. He's not a guy that I think is worthy of anything, but that seems to be different for Minami, the main girl of this series. But this is my thoughts on the first, 4 episodes? Yes, 4 episodes of the series. So let's just jump right into it. It opens up with Tsubasa, who is currently moving to Hokkaido. His family is moving there. And of course, he is from Tokyo. And so this new place he's going to is extremely cold. There's snow everywhere. People are freezing. When he arrives there, he makes these... Well, I'm going to say he makes the stupid decision that makes no sense of getting out of the taxi before he even gets home because he thinks he can walk the rest of the way. Which, this being, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, it's a very long walk. And again, it's freezing, it's snowing and everything. Anyways, it's a good decision technically because he comes across a Gyaru in the area. And this girl, like most Gyarus do, is wearing barely anything. She's wearing a skirt. He's freezing his butt off and she's wearing a skirt and her blouse is open. And it freaks him out. He's like, this girl, why is she dressed like that? But anyways, they end up talking with each other. She ends up finding out that he's from Tokyo. She freaks out. I'm guessing this is a thing in Japan. I mean, I kind of experienced it sometimes in America that whenever you have people in like a remote place and somebody from a big city comes and moves there, there's like question marks and, you ask a lot of questions like, oh, wow, that's amazing. What was it like living there? But yeah, it seems like a Japan thing, at least a show thing, that a lot of characters seem to have like this big fascination with Tokyo. So obviously him being from Tokyo, she freaks out. He thinks it's the greatest thing ever. There seems to be a little bit of implying throughout these first few episodes that, yes, Minami Fuyuki, this Gyaru, she seemed to think that that's a cool place, that Tokyo is amazing. And it would make sense because she is a Gyaru, and there's a very big Gyaru culture in Tokyo. And being in Hokkaido, seems a little odd that she's a Gyaru, but she thinks it's the greatest. So she's asking a bunch of questions. She thinks it's the coolest thing ever. And then over time, they get to know each other. Eventually, she starts to cuddle up with him because it's cold, and he starts freaking out because he's not used to being in close contact with a woman, especially a Gyaru. It seems like where he was in Tokyo, it seemed like he was an outcast. He was kind of very secluded, didn't really know many people. Even the idea of meeting a Gyaru in Tokyo just seemed like would never happen. So this idea that he's now with his Gyaru here, he's a little uncomfortable and freaking out. Eventually he makes some comment about her being cute because she got all snotty and tried to clean it up and put some ice down his cloak and started giggling about it. It flustered her, and then she ends up, running off. He was supposed to wait for the bus for her. She gets on the bus, and he doesn't get on the bus. He's an idiot. Anyways, he gets home, goes to school the next day. Come to find out, he's actually in the same class as Minami Fuyuki. Actually sitting right next to him. She helps him out with a lot of things, like helping him keep warm during class by giving him a little blanket. Kind of takes him out to go to a festival, which at the time she thinks is really dumb. Like, she almost regrets asking him to go to the festival with her because she had only gone there when she was in elementary school, and she thinks it's going to be boring for him because he's from Tokyo. But he ends up enjoying it. He had a lot of fun, and in him having fun, she has fun in return. So it kind of turns this whole thing where she's rediscovering the wonders of Hokkaido, a place that she thought was boring and not enjoyable, because she's enjoying experiencing it with him. We also have a brief moment where she invites him to go to her house because people don't hang out at different places in Hokkaido because it's freezing cold and it's snowing. So they hang out at each other's house. And so she invites him to his place, and her parents aren't there. and he brings a movie, which the movie ends up having like some inappropriate scenes in it, but she ended up falling asleep, so it didn't matter anyways. But he's a good man. Like, she's sitting there vulnerable, laying there sleeping, and he's a good enough person to cover her up and, you know, tell her that he was leaving for the day and everything like that. So there's some cute interaction between the two of them. Eventually, Minami Fuyuki ends up meeting Tsubasa's grandmother. Yes, somebody that seems to be very strict when it comes to relationships. So when Tsubasa is walking down the street with Minami, and she decides to go inside of a snow fort and drag him into it, and it's so small, the two of them are right on top of each other, and make a lot of very suggestive comments. The grandma ends up walking by and is kind of questioning Tsubasa, who's this woman, and what is your relationship with her? But what kind of is cool thing that kind of turns from this is Tsubasa is kind of afraid of insulting Minami, but he's afraid of his grandmother more. So he ends up kind of telling her, look, it's just a classmate of mine, which, yes, hurts Minami because she thinks that he's, you know, their friend at least. And so he kind of just parts the conversation and parts ways with her. But then Minami is like, no, wait, we're not done yet. She like runs in there and just pretty much gives the grandmother a lot of helpful information because her grandmother once used to walk these streets and actually hurt herself. So she kind of gives the grandmother a lot of advice and, you know, take this route instead because this way has a lot of black ice. You can end up slipping and falling. Plus this way is a lot quicker. And then the grandmother ends up inviting her to the house, lowering her guard down a little bit like, okay, maybe this girl's actually a pretty good girl. But then the girl's like running around Tsubasa's bedroom going, man, you're actually really a rich person. This is crazy. And taking pictures. And so the grandma's like, no, never mind. I have to keep an eye on him. The last stories we really have is where we meet Sayuri, which is another Gyaru, I guess, in this whole ordeal. Minami really wants to be friends with Sayuri, but unfortunately, it seems like Sayuri always shoots her down. And so they go to this whole ski trip with the school. And Minami says, you know, look, I'd really like to be her friend. Can you help me out? And Tsubasa ends up getting Sayuri off to the side, learning how to ski, and eventually ends up catching her drying herself off in the bus, which opens up the conversation as to Sayuri's secret, that she is keeping herself separated from other people, and additionally that she really thinks that Minami is gorgeous. But Sayuri has a problem with excessive sweating, and so she doesn't partake in a lot of things like PE and stuff, and has kind of isolated herself because of it. And so Tsubasa kind of helps her meet Minami, get into the fold, and have fun. Plus, she's like a big gamer too, so because that's something that she had to do because she can't really do anything else. And then finally, in the 4th episode, we get to meet Minami's mother, who is literally just like her. This girl is a straight up Gyaru woman, and yeah, she's does a pretty good job of trying to push Tsubasa onto Minami. Like, he's walking to school and he's freezing, and she ends up picking him up along with Minami, and she kind of just sits there and flirts with him. And talking about how, yeah, well, you're the one that she always is talking about. Oh, yeah, you should really, did you have a girlfriend? You should really get with Minami. All that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of fun. And that episode kind of wraps up with Tsubasa, Minami, and Sayuri kind of going out to shopping together and having a lot of fun together. And Minami and Sayuri kind of getting their bond a little bit closer. Oh, yeah, and also Minami trying to tease Tsubasa by sending pictures of herself in the bath and trying to get a reaction out of him. And he keeps replying to the text saying, man, you really are very dedicated to your beauty. I could tell by the picture. And eventually she video calls him and shows herself just to get a reaction out of him. And then unfortunately drops the phone and nearly gives him an entire full body shot of herself. It's crazy. Anyways, that is Hokkaido gals are super, super adorable. Like I said before, I typically don't like, it's not that I don't like shows like this, it's just that I come into them expecting they're going to be just basically about, here is this hot character, and buy our merch. And there really is very little substance to this series overall. And that especially happens, unfortunately for me, with Gyaru shows. For those that don't know, I don't know why I didn't explain it earlier, but Gyarus are essentially valley girls of Japan. They are the ones that kind of do themselves up. A lot of makeup typically. They like to get their hair typically dyed. Yes, they show a lot of cleavage. They like to roll their skirts up, wear high thighs, thigh-high socks and stuff like that. There's a lot of things they like to do to kind of pretty themselves up. It's just that kind of, like I said, a kind of a valley girl type of setup. But with this series, so far, I'm liking it, but there's aspects that I don't like. First of all, visually, I give it credit for having a unique style to it. I think the character designs themselves are very unique. The eye shapes themselves, the facial shapes and stuff are very unique. It's very rounded. The eyes are very wide. It's got a unique style to it, and I do appreciate it for that. On the other hand, I don't think this studio, or at least Blade and Silverlink, is handling it well because it doesn't look right. There's a lot of off-modeling that's happening here and there sporadically. And additionally, characters like Sayuri just doesn't look right because she has like a very flat hairline. It's almost like somebody took a razor and just kind of zipped right across there, and it looks very off. And again, added to with the off-modelness, it kind of looks off for me. So I'm not a huge fan of the character designs and how it's being kind of put together. I will say Minami on a regular basis has some very cute shots, that's for dang sure, and there's a lot of very nice spicy shots that they're doing a very good job of. I like the shot with Minami inside of the snow fort, her in the house when she's kind of leaning over the table. There's a lot of very spicy and very good shots of the characters, that's for sure. Putting visuals aside, story-wise, I like aspects of the series and other aspects I don't. Let's start off with Tsubasa. Like I said earlier, he's not extremely boring, but there's not really much to him other than the fact that he has a little bit of confidence issue, which typically you have with characters like this. He is a do-gooder, which typically you have with characters like this. There's pretty much like a check boxes for perfect waifu shows, and it's the idea that it's typically, whoa, 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 I don't want to touch things. That first line there, they're very kind of standoffish for things. Tsubasa is not completely standoffish, but he does technically push back a lot. The second line is, yes, they have a lot of self-confident issues. They aren't liked. They're not popular. They don't feel like they're adequate enough for other people. And that's kind of going there as well. And third, not much outgoingness of them. They're very introverted. They don't really like to open their mouth and do much, besides whenever there's a point where they can add encouragement. The only uniqueness that I'm getting from Tsubasa so far is that he's willing to kind of blurt out things that he's thinking about. So he's not always internalizing things, and that often turns into some really fun moments, like the idea that, yes, he will blurt out things like there's this one moment where he's in the car with Minami and her mother, and they were talking about going out and getting clothes and getting, things to beauty themselves up, and he, mid-thinking about something, he ends up blurting out, but you both are already beautiful. So there is fun moments like that I do like, but for the most part, he's very bog standard. There's nothing. He's not funny. He's not well spoken. There's a lot of really good male protagonist characters out there for series like this, and this is just not one of them. That aside, the character that is definitely carrying the show for me so far is Minami. I think she is a good-hearted character, and they are doing really well with her character and the idea that, like I mentioned earlier, they're playing her out as the girl that thinks Tokyo is the greatest. It's obvious there's an impression here that she does not like Hokkaido, she's grown bored of it, and she wants to go to Tokyo. And yes, being that she's dressing up very Gyaru-ish, it makes you believe that that's probably something she wants to be a part of. She wants to be a part of that Tokyo, Gyaru culture. And so she's doing herself up and everything. And she wants to be there. And so when she meets Tsubasa, she's obviously very entertained by him, wants to know more, get information out of him kind of thing. And it just kind of turns into a thing that instead of her constantly prodding Tokyo out of him, it's actually reversing in the idea that he is showing her through her helping him meet people and go out and learn the area and learn the wonders of being in Hokkaido, what you have to worry about, how to deal with a blizzard, where you hang out, all these things that people in Hokkaido do. She's learning, by you experiencing it for the first time, and me being there with you, I'm finding that I like this place now. I think the festival was a really nice little scene, the idea that she thought it was going to be bad. She was regretting inviting him. She was like, what if he hates it? What if he gets there and goes, man, this is boring? But he was loving it. And through seeing him have fun, she fell in love with it. And she liked what she was doing. So he's kind of helping her to rediscover what she likes about Hokkaido, which I think is really sweet. Additionally, there is a lot of kind of misinformation happening here between the two of them, and the idea that she thinks that Tsubasa is like this rich guy. He is technically rich. He's got a big mansion in Hokkaido. But she thinks that he's like this rich guy that was like living in Tokyo, and he was, you know, extremely popular. But in actuality, he again was pretty much like a shut-in for the most part in Tokyo, and didn't really know many people, wasn't very outgoing, didn't experience dates and all this kind of stuff. And she keeps kind of expecting that that's something that he's, you know, experienced. Another character that I'm not really feeling so far, but she was doing a little better in the 4th episode, was Sayuri. Sayuri is who they introduced in the 3rd episode, and she is essentially, again, somebody that has been pushing Minami away, even though Minami wanted to meet her. Minami thinks that Sayuri is just gorgeous. Like, she's a Gyaru, she's gorgeous and everything, I want to be her friend. But she keeps pushing Minami away. And that's because she had the wrong impression of Minami. And what it kind of turns into, again, is this idea of somebody that's been isolating themselves because they have they sweat a lot and they think they stink, and that's kind of ruined their self-confidence, that they push people away. And she's kind of turned into a gamer. Kind of boring. She kind of turned into a very boring character. It is kind of funny, that whole thing where she gets overly excited explaining about video games, and she gets a little geeky, which I kind of find endearing. But for the most part, she didn't really add too much to the story when they went through her story. It was a little better in the 4th episode, and the idea that she's kind of becoming the third wheel, so to speak, in the relationship between the three of them, and kind of adding a little bit of extra flavor and a little bit of extra mix to the conversations. But I don't know. We'll see going forward. But so far, she hasn't really done too much for me. I'm curious how this other girl is going to turn out that they have over the OP. She's probably the one that I think stands out the most as kind of being a little bit off for the art style itself. But hopefully her character's good, but maybe she can add a nice little mix to it. The mother was fantastic. I love the mother. She was a lot of fun. The grandmother I think the mother and the grandmother are like polar opposites of each other. Like the mother of Minami is like totally trying to get these two kids together, whereas the grandmother is just constantly trying to push it away. Outside of that, though, like the comedy and the chemistry and everything, I think has been really good. It's been really solid. I think a lot of the little scenes that they have between the characters has been a lot of fun. Like I said, the whole snow fort thing and her just kind of being under there with her butt hanging up, just completely unguarded, pulling them in there and just saying like the most suggestive things was really hilarious. Again, the movie was great as well, just kind of playing something that he thought was going to be a little bit uncomfortable to be in the room with her with, and then just to turn over to see her sleep rather than her moaning that he thought. But yeah, overall, I've been enjoying it, and I am looking forward to more of it. I think, like I said, for a perfect waifu / Gyaru hot girlfriend type of show for the blank male protagonist type of series, this one's doing a lot better than most of them. Enough that I've been enjoying it. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with me just really enjoying Minami's character, and I think her chemistry with Tsubasa has been really solid, so it has me looking forward to more. But that's my first impressions of Hokkaido Gals Are Super Adorable. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure that like button down below, comment. Let me know what you think of the series so far if you're going to be checking it out. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button so you get my content. I did news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, membership button down below. Greatly appreciate what it does, and y'all take care.